If 2017-18 Lego was told, hey, in 2025, we would still be making videos about this guy, I would have never have guessed that we would have been talking about him in this way. Because today, we are talking about the biggest bust in Detroit Red Wings draft history. Is that fair to say? Is he the biggest bust out there? Maybe the biggest bust in recent memory, but still, let's talk about one of the guys that, in a way, defines the lack of draft success that Ken Holland had as the GM of the Detroit Red Wings, especially in the later years. You can talk to me about Dylan Larkin, Michael Rasmussen, Jonathan Berggren, even some of these other guys, but still, the amount of misses that were in there, especially towards the end. I mean, a lot of folks would go out there and immediately talk about Dennis Cholowski, Andrei Svechnikov's brother, but honestly, in terms of the hype, in terms of the expectation, in terms of the draft spot, in terms of who was drafted immediately after, there is no worse name in recent Red Wings history, maybe in all-time Red Wings history, than Filip Zadina. I always love talking about Zadina, because I say this all the time, but in my first full year of making hockey commentary videos, my senior year of high school, 2017-2018, yeah, we've been at it for 7 years doing this kind of a show format. It's been ridiculous. But back in that time frame, Zadina was a guy that I was super high on, like the rest of the hockey world. Because outside of a few outlets, he was the unanimous third overall projected pick. Future considerations had him at 3, McKean's at 3, Bob McKenzie had him at 4 because they had Brady Tkachuk a little bit higher. And in terms of NHL Central Scouting, Filip Zadina was their third-ranked skater in North America over there. I guess they also had Brady Tkachuk a little bit higher. But Phil Zadina was supposed to be a definitive goal-scoring machine at the National Hockey League level. He was a guy that people said could be able to get 35 to 40 goals a season. And as a sniper for the Halifax Mooseheads in the QMJHL, he was showing off so much value, scoring 82 points and 44 goals, not to mention his stellar World Junior performance that season, which boosted him so highly up draft boards that some folks in 2018 were saying, hey, could Zadina go second overall over Andrei Svechnikov? You know the story here. Zadina slipped from 3rd to 6th because the Canadiens and the Arizona Coyotes wanted to draft centers. They took Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Barrett Hayton when they were definitely not supposed to be taken anywhere near that range, and Phil Zadina slipped to number 6, where the Red Wings drafted him after being projected to taking Evan Bouchard. Filip Zadina never had NHL success to the same magnitude that was expected out of him. Sure, he had scored 91 points in 262 games, which isn't bad, but when you consider the guys that were taken after Zadina, like, for example, Quinn Hughes, you also had Evan Bouchard, Noah Dobson, all up in there, a bunch of guys who were high-end producers from the back end. This is where Filip Zadina's career starts to look a lot more grim, because his best season as a Detroit Red Wing came in 2021-2022, where he had scored 24 points in 74 games. Not bad, all things considered. That's still an NHL caliber guy, but for a player that all of us thought would have been challenging for team lead in goal scoring, a guy who would be a top-line winger to play alongside of Dylan Larkin, Filip Zadina was just not it. His style didn't translate. He couldn't just snipe it from left, right, center, anywhere on the ice like he could in junior, and quite frankly, he was over-relying on his shot. It just wasn't working for him. This is why he went over to San Jose for last season. He had 23 points and 13 goals in 72 games over there, and then he decided to head over to Europe, posting up 34 points in 43 games for HC Davos in the Swiss League. Now, that's not terrible. It's fine. But even that production, a guy under a point per game in the Swiss League, isn't really indicative of a player that I think has extremely projectable NHL levels of success. With this in mind, let's go over onto an article published by Bob Duff earlier this morning that talks about how Filip Zadina would indeed welcome a return to the National Hockey League. In Davos, I felt like they took me as a valid player. They gave me a role, and I filled it, Zadina told Czech website Sport Sennecke. I apologize. If a similar opportunity were presented to him by an NHL club, Zadina would jump at the chance to come back across the Atlantic Ocean. If something like that could come here from America, I would take it 100%, Zadina said. But on the other hand, I want to look to the future. I want to be a good player who helps our team decide games, and I didn't have that role in America. For me, that move to Europe was a smarter move for my development. I believe I'm better now than last year. And this is the thing about Filip Zadina. If you go over to a bunch of Red Wings all-time draft busts lists, you're not going to see Zadina ranked too highly. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Zadina is still just 25 years old, and a lot of lists over the years have been compiled when Zadina was 22, 23, so it's like there's a reasonable level of doubt that can exist when you acknowledge that he is that young. Right? Like, you don't ever want to write somebody off because they could pop off at age 26, 27, 28. It's just, at this point, it's gotten so far into Filip Zadina's career, and his production has not really been at any sort of an elite level in the NHL, that I think it's honestly reasonable to start pulling the plug on Filip Zadina's NHL hopes and dreams. Sure, he can probably be a player. He's smart enough defensively. He has a good enough offensive skill set and a brain to be able to get, let's say, 7 to 10 goals a year and maybe 20 points a season. That's not terrible. But he was supposed to be so much more than that. And a lot of the sting with Zadina comes with the fact that Quinn Hughes, in my opinion, the best defenseman on the planet, was taken right after Zadina. And he was taken out of Detroit's backyard. He was a Michigan Wolverine. If there was anybody in that 2018 draft that Detroit should have known more than anybody, it should have been Quinn Hughes. A lot of folks like to throw out that hypothetical, oh, what if Quinn Hughes was out there playing with Mo Seider? That 1-2 pairing would be unstoppable. Yeah, it would be. And the Wings had a chance to get that. They had a chance to draft Quinn Hughes. They said, nah, sorry, we'll take Zadina. And honestly, like, I'll say this as well. I said this back in 2018, and I say it literally every single time this conversation is held. But Detroit skipping out on Hughes, it's not that bad when you think about the context of what people were thinking about in 2018. Filip Zadina was supposed to be the 3rd overall pick. He only didn't go 3rd overall because the Habs needed a center. Ottawa selecting Brady Tkachuk seemed like it was always going to happen. They wanted that kind of a guy, and Tkachuk was reasonably ranked ahead of Zadina on some lists, like TSN and Bob McKenzie's list and NHL Central Scouting's North American list. So Tkachuk going over Zadina, that's not that big of a deal either. Barrett Hayton going number 5 to Arizona, that's a sin. Like, we had made a video heading into the 2018 draft saying, oh yeah, Barrett Hayton could be this guy that inevitably gets taken somewhere in the top 10, but nobody thought he would be taken 5th overall. That was a huge shock. So Detroit didn't really take any quote-unquote risk by drafting Filip Zadina in the 6th overall spot, because a lot of folks said, hey, he's going to be a top 3 talent. He's so good. He's going to be a 40-goal scorer. Taking this guy at 6 is the easy choice. They skipped out on Quinn Hughes because of it, but ultimately, it wasn't really that big of a deal in 2018 when it happened. It's only bad now because, like, hey, Filip Zadina sucks and he's not really all too good. Now he's in Europe. But he's going out there and saying in articles that, yeah, I'd be okay to come back to the NHL if I'm able to get a top role on a team. I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. He says here at the end, though, if it comes, it comes. If not, of course, I won't hang my head. I was there in the NHL for a few years. I tried it, and it was great. And not to get too disrespectful here, but tell that to the hundreds of thousands of Red Wings fans that have nothing to show for out of that 6th overall draft position, a relatively high draft position pick too. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Filip Zadina and his NHL career. If any HC Davos fans are out there watching this video, then hey, let me know your thoughts on how Phil Zadina was able to perform for your team in the Swiss League this year, and were you impressed? Do you think this guy has what it takes to get back into the National Hockey League? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9. And bye.